Welcome back to By Myself But Not Alone. This is episode 26, Raleigh, North Carolina. Now I gotta warn you on this one, my spoken part's gonna get a little lengthy, and if you stick with us, you'll understand why. But if you're one of those people that logs in just to see the video, again, I gotta warn you, I'd run away right now. I might actually have to tape this in segments. My voice might give out, the batteries on the microphone might give out. If that happens, I'll do my best to fool you, to put it together as if that didn't happen. But if I look just a little bit different, please don't hold it against me. So let's get on with it. Now, where were we? At the end of the last episode, we were all there on the strip in Nashville. Everyone agreed to opt out of a wild and crazy night in pursuit of our own personal little plans. But we all knew that we'd be meeting up again in a couple days in Raleigh. At this point on the trip, the miles were really starting to add up. I was feeling really worn out, but each day I seemed to be able to find something to focus on, something to look forward to keep me going. In this case, it was a little trip to the town I was born in, Walterboro, South Carolina. I had two primary objectives on that visit. The first, I wanted to see my old friend Tammy Frierson. You may remember her from episode 4 of Color Our World Blackened. She knew I was coming. She was excited about it. My second objective on that little trip was to obtain what I refer to as my coast-to-coast tour credentials. And what I mean by that is I wanted to go to Edisto Beach and draw the Metallica emblem in the sand and write Raleigh, North Carolina and the show date as I had done at Rockaway Beach in Oregon. So with that as my plan, I woke up early in Nashville the next morning. I hit the road, and about 10 hours later, I checked into my hotel in Walterboro and I called my friend Tammy. She was waiting for my call. She was ready to go. I ran over and I picked her up. We drove around town a little bit. We headed out to the little area where we had met as neighbors 40-some years ago. That's something that we do each time I go back. I always look forward to it. And from there, we went into town. We stopped in a bar for a couple hours. We hung out there. Then we went back to the hotel and we stayed up most of the night. We had a nice short visit, but it was a great visit. It's just never long enough. Unfortunately, I hadn't given her enough notice. She had plans the next day. She wasn't able to go to the beach, so I'd be doing that by myself, but not before stopping for a really quick visit with someone that I've known even longer than I've known Tammy. I've known this guy since our first day of kindergarten. His name is Louis Catterton. He owns a good-sized liquor store there in Walterboro, and I was pretty certain that I'd be able just to walk on in and get to see him. And that's exactly what happened. It was another very short visit, but it meant the world to me to get to see not one, but two friends that I've known since seemingly the beginning of time. One of these days I need to plan a trip and go down there a little longer so I can actually visit and maybe track down some of my other friends. But getting to see Tammy and Louie, two of my oldest friends, that really made that trip worthwhile, and I really look forward to seeing you guys again. With that, I headed to Edisto Beach, where I got to spend half a day staring out into an ocean that I've known for as long as I can remember. It was a great day. Right before I left, I drew the emblem in the sand. I wrote Raleigh in the show date. Even though I was in South Carolina, it was the show in Raleigh that had brought me this far. I took a picture. It wasn't until I got back to the hotel later that night that I realized that my dumb ass spelled Raleigh wrong. I left the I out, but it was too late to go back and change it now. I kind of felt like an idiot posting it up on Facebook, but oh well, things happen. Like I said, at this point I was really worn out, and it was really starting to show in even the simplest things. The important thing was that I had made it from coast to coast on the tour, and because I went into Canada on the first leg, and on the last leg of the tour I'd be going to El Paso, provided I made it that far, I would be able to successfully complete my mission of coast to coast and border to border. That's something that had been stuck in my mind since I first scored the black ticket. So I left Edisto Beach feeling really good about the way things were working out. I was going to make it back to the hotel pretty early, really decent hour. I'd be able to have a couple of drinks of Jack Daniels, relax, sleep right in, right up until checkout time. I had talked to Michelle, and her plane wasn't arriving in Raleigh until about 5 p.m. So I had plenty of time to sleep in and mess around a little on the way. It was less than a 4-hour trip from Walterboro to Raleigh, so it was just going to be a good day. I was really looking forward to 12 hours of sleep. That was just what I needed, but unfortunately, fate saw things a little differently. Right before I got back into Walterboro, I hit a deer. The deer population there in the Carolina Low Country was greater than pretty much anywhere in the United States, so it didn't really surprise me, and it didn't really do a lot of damage, but it did break the front end clip, which is made of plastic. No surprise there either. It broke the headlight, and then it cocked the headlight shooting up that way. I could have continued to drive that car, but it was a rental. It just didn't seem to make any sense, so I went back to the hotel. I called the state police and I made the report. I was glad to find out that they didn't have to physically come out, that it was such a common occurrence that all you had to do was call it in. They told me how to go about getting online and getting the proper documentation for the insurance company. I did that. Then I had to find out where I could trade the car in. It seemed the closest place was at the Charleston airport, which was about an hour away from the hotel. So there went my sleeping in. I got up early the next morning. I was there when they opened. I didn't want to take any chances in case there was any kind of wait time. Lucky for me, they had me in a new car in no time. That left me with enough time to head back to Walterboro and take a final look around before hitting the road to Raleigh. As I said earlier, each day I'd find something new to look forward to. Well, this had been on my mind ever since the Charlotte show, but on the road to Raleigh, I could finally set my sights on hopefully getting to see my little friend Gracie. I had met her and her mom at the Atlanta show in 2017, and I knew that they lived in North Carolina, so I had another chance to hopefully get to see her again. Of all the cool Metallica fans I've met randomly at shows over the years, Gracie is my absolute favorite, and the thought that I might get to see her again, that really woke me up. That excited me. I really had something to look forward to. It was a smooth trip. I had a nice drive. I arrived at the airport right when Michelle's plane landed, so our schedules couldn't have come together any more perfectly. We stopped and got a pizza. We checked into our hotel. I did some wash. We stayed up longer than we probably should have. We had to get caught up on what each of us had been doing for the past couple days. We finally got to sleep and woke up relatively early to head down to the PNC Arena. That's the home of the NHL's Carolina Hurricanes and the North Carolina State Wolfpack men's basketball team. It's quite an arena. I was very impressed when I could see it in the distance, but then we got stopped trying to get into the parking lot and security spun us around. They told us that we weren't allowed to line up until 3 o'clock. This was the first and only show on the entire tour where the venue had regulations about event lines. I think it might have had something to do with trying to prevent excessive consumption of alcohol via tailgating. But whatever the reason, it just didn't fit into our plans very well. There were some messages floating around that we hadn't gotten yet, saying that Matt from CID had mentioned that something like this could happen at this show, but he planned on talking to him and explaining to him the problems they were going to cause with all the experience packages that the band sold. Well, the event staff wasn't going to budge. Nobody in the system seemed to care anything about that until a little later in the day. So it was about 11 o'clock and we had 4 hours to kill if what the guy that ran us off had told us was true. We texted a couple of the other black ticket holders to see what was going on, and we found that there was a little group of them gathered up at, there was another arena adjacent to the big arena, and it had a different access road, so we went on up. There were only about a dozen people there. It seemed to be on a different piece of property because there was a road that split it. We figured we'd be fine. Well, we were wrong. We weren't even there an hour before the golf cart sheriff drove on up and he ran us off. He told us it was the same property and we had to go. We had noticed that there was a little restaurant bar right up where we had pulled in, so everybody agreed to head up there and waste a little time before trying again. When we got there, everybody headed on in. I decided to stay in the car and try to grab a couple bonus minutes of rest. That didn't last long at all. I looked over and saw my boy Brett from Upper Minnesota had pulled in right next to me. I told him about the current dilemma we had with the lines going on. He told me he had found a nice little movie theater that he wanted to park his car, and he asked me if I could follow him there and pick him up and then drop him off there after the show, and he said we can split parking. So, yeah, well, that's a good plan, so hold on. And I ran in and I told Michelle what I was going to do. I said, well, if you disappear by the time I get back, I'll see you in line. We went over to Brett's parking spot. By the time we got back, they had headed over on foot. Now, I didn't get to witness this, but I heard about it later. There were several times on their trip over where they all literally had to hit the ground and lay flat so the guy on the golf cart wouldn't see them. They were treating it kind of like a war, and they were on a sneak attack. And I could just picture it. Here we have some grown-ass people having the childish time of their lives. Michelle snapped a picture, and we've got one in the video in the end, but the whole thing made me laugh when I heard all about it. Before we had gone into the bar to find out that they had already left, we met two really cool chicks, Tanya and Amber. They were from the local area. They seemed to be some wild women. They were pretty lit up. They had just come out of the bar. Fortunately, they had another friend driving, but we got to talking to them, and I asked them if I could interview them. I told them about my project, and they said sure. And like I said, they were pretty lit up, and that was one fun interview. We had a great time doing that. From where we were sitting, we could see that they were starting to let cars in. It was nowhere near 3 o'clock, but evidently just too many people were starting to show up. And I guess somebody somewhere made the call, and they started letting people go in. So we hopped on over, and we got ourselves parked. On the way up to the building, we ran into 3 guys that were set up for a full-blown parking lot party. Started talking to him, asked him if I could interview him. I did that, and then I headed up to the building myself. I got right on it and started looking for black ticket holders that I hadn't met yet. I lucked out and found a good handful of them, so I got to give out some patches and get some black ticket intros to add to the file. After about an hour of talking a mile a minute, I was really starting to get thirsty, and I knew that we had a case of water in the trunk of the car. It was going to be a long walk, but I knew if I did it, I was going to be very happy I did, and if I didn't do it, I was going to be miserable. So I got to stepping. It was quite a walk, but I finally made it. I popped the trunk. I was in there rooting around, and I heard somebody say, "Excuse me." So I stood up and looked over, and there was a lady standing there, and she said, I hope you don't think I'm crazy. I just followed you from the building. But I was wanting to know would you happen to have been at the Atlanta show in 2017? I think you gave my daughter a guitar pick. Now that woke me up better than a triple dose of McDonald's coffee, and I could just feel how big I was smiling. And I said, Gracie, is she here? She said, yeah, she's up holding our spot in line. I saw you talking to those two guys and I didn't want to interrupt you. And then all of a sudden you were heading this way. So I told her I would be right back. I wanted to make sure it was you. I was pretty certain, but I wanted to make sure before I said anything to her. She's going to be so surprised. I said, of course she's here. That was kind of a stupid thing to say. You wouldn't be here without her. And I'm sorry I didn't recognize you instantly, but it's been a long week and a half. But I absolutely remember you guys. I'm so happy. I was hoping to see you. I am so glad you followed me and came up and said something. I can't wait to see her. This is the part where the episode gets a little longer, but I really feel the need to tell you about what happened at that show in Atlanta. In 2017, after being totally blown away by the production of the show in St. Louis, I decided that I needed to see a couple more shows on the tour. My friend Jeff and I got tickets to the Orlando show. My original plan was to do 3 shows. I wanted to get tickets to Orlando, Miami, and then Atlanta. But if we'd have done that, Jeff would have been cutting it just way too close for his family leaving on their annual vacation. So he talked me into flying to Orlando. I'm just not a big fan of flying. It gets you there, but it's just not as much fun. I like the trip to and from as much as I like the shows themselves. The answer to my problem hit me all of a sudden one day in the parking lot after work. I was talking to my friend Justin. Everybody at work calls him Junior. He's a self-proclaimed homebody. He's 34 years old, and he kind of always laughs about the fact that the furthest he's been away from home is under 6 hours on a trip to Buchanan, Michigan once. There were a couple people standing around, and I was explaining to him my dilemma of originally wanting to see 3 shows, but only getting to see 1. And then it hit me. I looked right at Justin, and I said, Junior, pack your bags, boy. You need some spontaneous excitement in your life. We're going to see Metallica in Atlanta. I'll order the tickets when I'm in Orlando, and when I get back, I'll pick you up and we'll head on down. Road trip time, brother. I was expecting a little hesitation or resistance, but he is a big Metallica fan, and he just looked up and said, you mean I'm going on vacation? Let's do it. I got really excited. I said, right on, it's on now. No backing out. I'm going to order the tickets. And he said, do it. So, again, I was really excited for him, and I looked forward to our little road trip. I told him, you're going to love the trip as much as you love the show. And he said, I can't wait for either. So the Orlando show came and went. We got there safely. We got home safely. We had a great time. The only issue I had with the whole trip was I came back with 1 Orlando pick. I wanted to give Alexander and Jonathan each a pick, but I only had 1. That was the only issue, and I figured I could deal with that when I got back from Atlanta. I shouldn't have done it, but a last-minute Megadeth opportunity arose for Friday night, so I went ahead and went to that show in St. Louis. Got up early the next morning, went over and picked up Junior, and we were Atlanta bound. We were having a great trip from the very moment it started. Junior was having the time of his life. It took us a little while to get a hotel. We went a little too close to Atlanta, and then we had to backtrack. We ended up getting one in Tennessee about 2 hours from Atlanta. We got some beer just to relax. We had a couple each. We didn't want to overdo it because we had a really big day the next day. We got up bright and early the next morning, and we headed to Atlanta. We left really early because we were on a mission. We were heading to find the pop-up store before the show. We knew it wasn't going to be at the stadium. We didn't have any idea where we were headed. It might take us a while to find it. We worked with another guy, Ed Frederick. He collects concert hats, and he asked if I could get him an Atlanta hat. He's seen a lot of the event-specific souvenirs that Metallica has to offer, and he told me if I got an opportunity to get him an Atlanta hat, he would appreciate it greatly. So I said, we'll do our best. And that was the primary reason we went to look for the pop-up store. So with Junior's stellar navigation skills, we easily found ourselves in an underground parking garage in this place a couple exits past the stadium. It was really easy to find. We really didn't have any problem at all finding the parking garage. The next step was finding the actual store. We knew that we were really close, but all we had was a frozen map on Junior's phone because we lost the cell signal being underground. He was up at the front of the car messing with his phone, and I was leaned on the car having a smoke. And then this lady walked up and she said, excuse me, are you guys by chance looking for the Metallica pop-up store? I see your shirts and I'm assuming that's why you're here. I looked at her and said, you would be correct, but Junior's having some trouble with his phone. He lost his signal and he's got a frozen map. But he's a little OCD about stuff like this, and I'm confident he will lead us to the right location. She walked on over, and he showed her what he had going on the phone, and they started messing with it. And I was just standing there watching them. I didn't have a care in the world. I was relaxing, and all of a sudden I heard a much smaller voice come from behind me. And the voice said, nice shirt. Now, I'm half deaf, and I heard it loud and clear, so I knew whoever was behind me wasn't a bit shy. When I turned around, I was greeted by a cute little girl with reddish hair, braces, and the biggest smile you can imagine fixed on her face. eyes wide open. She was apparently happy to be where she was. I just stared at her for a second. I smiled back at her. I said, well, hello there. I appreciate the compliment, but it seems to me if I had to choose between the two shirts, you're the one wearing the cooler shirt. It was Ride the Lightning. I said, is that the one with Fry Guy on back? She said, Fry Guy. I've never heard that, but I really like it. She knew exactly what I was talking about. She said, no, this is just a single-sided, regular old Ride the Lightning shirt, but the shirt you're talking about is my favorite. So I said, hang on a second. I don't want you to think I'm just talking to carry on this conversation. And I popped the back door open, and I pulled out this shirt. This is the one with the dude in the electric chair on the back. I held it up and showed her, and she really seemed to enjoy just looking at it. She said, that's my favorite Metallica shirt of all time. And I said, yeah, I think it might be my favorite too. I think we might be on the same page. I shut the door. We both kind of moved on over to where Junior and her mom were working on the phone, and I said, you know, it's pretty cool when people bring their kids to these shows. And her mom looked at me and said, oh, no. Trust me, I love Metallica, but she's the fan. We're here for her. I looked at her and said, well, you've got a very cool mom. And she said, yes, I know. Anyway, the signal was coming and going on the phone. It wouldn't stay, so they were messing with frozen maps. And they said, well, we're going to start walking that way. They thought they had a route out. I said, that sounds good to me. You lead, we'll follow. And then I heard in addition to my statement as she planted herself right next to me, she said, yeah, we trust you. We looked at each other and laughed, and we all started walking. I looked over and asked if this was going to be her first show, and she said, no, third. And she told me that she had gone to the 2016 show in Minnesota and then a show in Philly, the stadium show in Philly. I was pretty impressed with that, but I was even more impressed with the way that she delivered the 2-minute highlight reel of each show 100 miles an hour verbally. I mean, that girl could talk. When she was done rattling that off, I said, I got to know, what's your favorite song? She looked at me and said, Fade to Black, of course. She said, that's just the greatest song. I really have trouble finding the words to express how great of a song that is. What's your favorite song? I looked right at her and said, well, Fade to Black, of course, and I'll increase your sentiment. I honestly believe that's the greatest song in the history of recorded music. She got really excited. She clenched her fist together as she said, yes, what makes it so great? Why do you like it so much? She was very curious. I wasn't ready for that one, and I had to think about it for a minute because the answer is pretty simple, but it's a pretty deep answer. I said, how old are you? 12, maybe 13? She said, no, I'm 14. Everybody tells me I look a lot younger than I am. I said, well, don't worry about that. You see that guy up there? Does he look like he's in his mid-30s? And she said, no. I said, yeah, if he didn't have that little bald spot, people would swear he was in his early 20s. She laughed, I laughed, and then I got back to answering her question. I thought about it for a second, and I realized instantly that if it's her favorite song, regardless of her age, I was certain she was fully aware of the content, so I answered the question. I told her there were several reasons I loved the song so much. First of all, it was so melodic while heavy at the same time, the back and forth, the instrumental sound. But even more importantly, what blows me away about that song are the lyrics. It's a song about suicide that ironically makes you want to live. Then again, I can see her excitement. She was clenching her fists together again. She said, yes, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it does. She just got really excited. She had these bursts of excitement. She was so enthusiastic. It was really fun to talk to her. I couldn't wait to hear more, so I said, well, what's your favorite album? And when she answered, it was as if she had read my mind. I was just blown away. She said, well, you know, my favorite shirt's Ride the Lightning, and my favorite song's Fade to Black, so you would probably expect me to say my favorite album is Ride the Lightning. But it's not. It's Master of Puppets. Simply because, well, it's Master of Puppets. And I said, yeah, the perfect album. She said, yes, it's the perfect album. And she knew what she was saying. It was clear to me at this point already, right off the bat, that I was dealing with a hardcore Metallica fan. She definitely wasn't here because she heard Sandman on the radio and couldn't get enough of it. She knew what she was talking about. As we walked along talking, I realized that there was a gap forming between Junior and the mom and me and the girl, but we had a lot to say. I had to ask if she had any idea what she was going to get at the pop-up store. That kind of set her off again. There went those fists. She said, a shirt. It's got to be a shirt. I'm 14 years old and I've got 14 Metallica shirts and I need more. I need more shirts. I couldn't help but laugh, but I said, do you want to know what my mom did with all my Metallica shirts? Her eyes widened. She said, yes, tell me, what did she do? So I took a minute and I explained to her that she made a quilt out of 30 years of Metallica shirts. And that increased her level of excitement once again. She was just so enthusiastic and it was contagious. I couldn't help but feel the excitement that she was expressing. It was really kind of hard for me to wrap my head around how cool this kid was. I don't ever remember meeting anyone whose excitement overflowed and channeled into me to where I felt it, not on this level. It was pretty amazing. She asked me how old I was when I saw my first Metallica concert. I told her I was 16, April 2nd, 1986. When I told her that, there went the fist and the eyes got big and she said, oh my God, you saw Cliff Burton play live. And she knew that from the date. She was obviously familiar with the date he died, but I was very impressed. It registered instantly. She didn't even have to think about it. She said, "Oh my God, you saw Cliff play live. I can't wait to tell my friend that I hung out with a dude that saw Cliff Burton play live." I don't think she could help herself. She said, "Tell me about it. What was that like?" And I didn't know what to say to that. That one caught me off guard. That's like a really short question with a massive answer. I thought for a second and I said, "Well, for that answer, you're probably going to have to read my book." She said, "Oh my God, you've got a book?" And I said, No. I haven't written it yet. Ever since April 2nd, 1986, that was the day that I started telling everyone I know, someday this is going to be the biggest band on earth. And when we get to that point, I'm going to write a book about it. She said, "We're here. Write the book. I want to read that book. You got to write the book." And she went on and on. So I told her once again we were in agreement, and I told her that a couple months earlier, after being blown away by the production of the show in St. Louis, I actually sat down and started writing the book. I didn't get too far. I got about 10 pages in, but it's a start. I said, "Man, I wish I would have already written that book and I could give you a copy." And she looked right at me and she said, "Can I ask you something?" And we stopped walking for a second. I said, "Yeah, you can ask me anything. What do you got?" And she said, "Why haven't you written the book yet?" I said, "Well, that's a really good question. And a lot of my friends have asked me that over the years, and they're still asking me that." And the answer is relatively simple. We started walking again. And I said, "If you're going to write a book about things you've done, you better have done some things. But I've got this feeling that something big is coming, and I just don't know what it is." And like I told you, I started the book. Well, this is kind of the reason I stopped. Something's coming and I don't know what it is. And I honestly believe that when it's time to write that book, I'll know it. And I really feel like we're getting to that point. That's why I started. But I just don't know a better way to answer your question than that. She thought about it for a minute and she said, "That makes perfect sense. But I think you should write the book. I'm sure you've done plenty." I kind of laughed, but I said, "I really like the way you think, and I'm going to have to give this some serious thought when I get home." She wanted to know if I knew what the title was going to be yet. And I said, "No, not really." So we spent a couple minutes discussing possibilities. At this point, we came up to a staircase, so we all shut up and we just looked at the construction sign. It was closed off. So there we were. We had just spent 12 or 15 minutes walking. It's hard to explain due to the way the place was shaped, but we had made most of a big giant circle. So we thought we saw a staircase a little further down. We all headed over, and a couple minutes later, we were up on street level. I guess we were all kind of happy that we had made it up to the street, but the walk didn't bother me one bit. Again, I was so amazed at the depth of her knowledge. She had obviously studied this band's music and its history, and it showed. That was a tremendous surprise. I did not wake up that morning with any expectation of a meeting like that in my mind. We didn't know it at the time, but we still had a couple blocks to go, so we all just started walking, and we figured when we started seeing people in Metallica shirts, that would clue us to where we were. And then one of the phones popped on, so that made it real easy. We reached a point where Google was telling us we were looking right at it, and we just didn't see it. So we saw somebody with a Metallica bag. We asked him how to get there, and he pointed through. We were looking at the back entrance. That's why it didn't jump out at us. So we headed on over. We got in line, and we were just about there. We weren't in line outside at all very long. There were just a couple people between us and the door. And right before we went through the door, I looked at her, and I said, "You never shut up, do you?" And I laughed. And she said, "No, I'm sorry. I really have a hard time with that." I said, "No, don't take it wrong. That's a compliment coming from me. As you just saw, I never shut up either. You're like one of my people. I really enjoyed talking to you." She said, "I enjoyed talking to you too." She gave me that big smile. The guy said next, and they went on in. So we were next. We went on in. We looked around a bit. I went to the guy at the t-shirt stand, asked him if they had an Atlanta hat. He said he thought they had some, but they might have sold out, and he pointed over to a rack that they would be on if they had any. We saw a couple hats, but it wasn't what I was looking for, so I went back to the t-shirt guy. I figured I'd get Ed a t-shirt, and they didn't have his size. So with that, we looked around a little bit longer, and I said, "Well, let's head to the stadium." Junior said, "Sounds good to me." As we were leaving, I took a good look around the store, and I wanted to find the girl and her mom, and again, tell them it was nice meeting them. I didn't see them anywhere, so I assumed they got what they needed, and they had already taken off. So we headed out the door. As long as it took us to find the store to begin with, we figured it was going to take us that long to find the car, but it didn't. It turned out that the entrance to the garage was right next to the pop-up store, so if we would have gone the opposite direction from the way that we started our 8-mile joy walk, we would have been there in 2 minutes. But if we'd have done that, I would have missed out on the greatest conversation that I can ever remember having. So I was glad things worked the way they did. When I reached in my pocket to pull out my car keys, I felt 2 guitar picks, and I said, "Oh man, I should have given her my Orlando pick." I had this dilemma that I only had 1 and I needed 2. Well, I could have given it to her. When I told Junior that, he said, "Yeah, that would have been the perfect person to give it to. She really would have appreciated it." And he said, "Man, that girl knows her stuff. I heard bits and pieces of what you guys were talking about, but my God, I never met anybody that knows that much about Metallica, especially not at her age. He was very impressed. He asked me if I got her name, and I said no. We were busy talking, and I said, did you get the mom's name? And he said, no, we were busy navigating. I told him if we ran into him at the show, I'd give her the guitar pick, and he said, well, that sounds like a good plan, but how many people are going to be at this show? 40, 50,000? Good luck. We kind of laughed, and with that, we got in my car and we headed down to the stadium. We walked around the stadium, we took a good look around. We stood in line for an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and they started letting people in pretty early in the day. I was happy about that. As soon as we got inside, I got a text from my friend Ernie. Ernie was one of the 4 guys that went to my very first Metallica show with me, and he had brought his sons to that show. In the message, he said he was entering through the main gate. He said in about a half hour he'd be right inside so we could meet up there real quick. So we headed in that direction. We were almost at the spot where we were supposed to meet up, and I heard somebody say, hey, and I looked over, and it was the girl's mother, and right behind her was the girl. I said, hey, I've been looking for you. And she said, looking for us? And I said, no, you'll understand, hang on. And I pulled the pics out, and I said, I'm going to ask you this because I already know her answer, but would you mind if I give your daughter a guitar pick? I went to the show in Orlando, and I've got a friend with 2 kids. I try to get them each time I go to a show, and I ended up with just 1 pick. So I've got a bit of a dilemma, and I figured she'd be the perfect person to give it to. So I said, would you mind if I gave it to her? And she said, absolutely not. So I reached over to put it in her hand, and her hand was just shaking, and she just kept saying, oh my God, thank you, over and over. And as soon as it hit her hand, she clenched her fist and she just started shaking, and I thought, oh my God, breathe, girl, it's going to be okay. And she was so excited. She took out her phone and she started taking a picture. She said, I have to tell my friend. So she starts texting her friend. I looked at her mom and I said, is she going to be okay? It looks like she might explode. And she said, no, she's going to be fine, but I haven't seen her this excited since we gave her tickets to the first show in Minnesota. I looked back over at her, and I'm sure you've seen a 13, 14-year-old girl get super excited. She was doing that deal where her knees were bending ever so often. It was kind of like she was jumping, but her feet weren't leaving the ground. I really thought she might explode. It's kind of hard to accurately explain, but that made me feel so good that made her that happy. Seeing that reaction, if I didn't know better, I would have thought Kirk Hammett himself put that pick in her hand. And it just felt really good. I wasn't expecting that, and I can't tell you how good that felt. I can't tell you how many times she said thank you, and then I looked at her mom, and her mom said thank you so much, and I said no, thank you. One of my very favorite parts of this whole Metallica thing anymore is seeing the parent-child interaction, any combination of that. Mother-daughter, father-daughter, mother-son, father-son, whatever. It's just great. It reminds me of a song by System of a Down, appropriately named Highway Song. It's got a line in there that says, the purest forms of life, our days are never coming back. And I can promise you that someday you're going to be so happy you've done these road trips. I'm sure you're already loving it right now, but someday you're going to look back and just be so glad you did this. I always say good parents raise good kids, and I can see you've done a fine job. And one more thing I'd like to say about your daughter. If all the 14-year-old girls out there were like her, I'd say there's hope for the future. And I kind of laughed. I told her we were heading over to meet my friend and we needed to get going. And I said, there's just one more thing. And if you have any problem with it at all, I understand. It's 2017. There's plenty of creeps in the world. We haven't met before today, but would you mind me asking your daughter's name? I don't need a last name. Just her first name, because I don't know if she told you, I told her someday I might write a book, and when I do, I'd like to give her a name check in the book. She said, I don't have a problem with that at all, and I appreciate you asking, but her name's Gracie. I looked over and I said, Miss Gracie, if that's not the most appropriate name for you, I don't know what is. It was nice meeting you. Have a great show. And I'm not the biggest fan of the old fist bump, but I reached out and gave her one. Junior told him goodbye. We all said goodbye. We headed on over to meet my friend Ernie, and that was another great 15-minute experience with the old parent-child interaction at the Metallica show. We went and found our seats. We had a great show. Metallica rocked Atlanta. The next evening, we were back at home. Junior had the time of his life. We had one hell of a road trip, but when I got home, I realized that something had changed. That contagious excitement that I caught from my new little friend, it hadn't gone away. It hadn't subsided at all. It was kind of strange. I assumed that in the next couple days it would kind of fade away and I'd go back to normal, but I was just happy to feel it in that moment. So Junior and I returned to work, and all our co-workers got to hear all about our adventures, Junior's road trip, And I also told quite a few people about the coolest Metallica fan I'd ever met. Junior mentioned her more than once too. He was really impressed. Even on the trip home, there were a couple times where we're cruising along in silence and Junior would just say, "Gracie's cool," or "Gracie's mom's cool." He'd just pop it out, and that would lead into the conversation of remembering what we had done the day before. And then that continued throughout the week. Gracie made quite a lasting impression on Junior as well, and her name popped up quite a bit that following week. And every time that anybody heard either one of us talk about her, we got the same common response. "That sounds like a really cool kid." The following week, I was sitting at home just thinking about the events of the previous weekend, and I realized that that feeling of excitement still hadn't subsided. And I could only credit it to the chance meeting that had occurred. It was a unique, unexpected, incredibly significant meeting that altered my perception of where I was in time. I'm really not trying to go too deep with this, but I was really trying to wrap my head around what happened in Atlanta. I realized that I should use that energy, that excitement that had been reawoken in me, to focus on something that had been there all along. I never stopped being a Metallica fan, but I'll just say life happened. 10 years previous to the Atlanta show, I worked in a factory. I quit that to start a business. That failed miserably because I didn't give it my all. I wasn't passionate about what I was trying to do. So I went back to school. I got a year away from the goal that I set when I re-entered, and that didn't work out. Again, lack of passion. So I ended up back in the factory for gas money and health insurance until I figured out what I want to be when I grow up. I had come to the conclusion that I'm nothing more than a diehard Metallica fan, and that's not such a bad thing to be. For the very first time, that was enough. I was content. I was happy. So again, it just really seemed like it was time to focus my energy on something that had been there all along. A goal that I had set for myself back in 1986. So I sat down and I finished the first chapter of my book. Then I put the book back on hold because I started organizing my YouTube channel. And we'll see where this goes. Maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. The only objective is to have a good time. That's what I've been doing. It's been a lot of fun, and we probably need to get back to that book. But anyway, Gracie helped me that day. She helped me more than she will ever know. The best thing was she wasn't trying to help me. She was just being herself. She was doing her thing. She really liked to talk. I bring this up because over the years, in going to these Metallica shows and doing these road trips, I've met and gotten to know a lot of incredible people. I've been involved in a lot of discussion, conversations about how this band specifically, this band brings so many people from so many walks of life all together, and how well the fans seem to get along at the shows. I've heard a lot of people say that it took them a long time before they could get comfortable just randomly talking to any old stranger. I've heard many people say that to them for a long time it seemed like everyone around them seemed to know each other, and they felt like they were missing something. And then at some point something would happen that changed that. If you happen to be one of these people that has a hard time breaking the ice, I strongly encourage you, next time you find yourself in a line at a show, surrounded by people where nobody's really saying much, jump right in, go for it, strike up a conversation, because you really never know who you might meet and what that person might mean to you or what you might mean to that person. All good friendships start with a single exchange, and if you don't know what to say, use Gracie's line, "Nice shirt." Trust me, it works every time. Next time you get the chance, try it and see what happens. I'm pretty sure you're going to be glad that you did. So that's how I met my favorite Metallica fan, and there I was in Raleigh heading up to the line to see her again. As I walked along with her mom, I told her all about my YouTube channel, and I told her about the black ticket. And before I knew it, I could see Gracie sitting on the ground with her back leaning against the building. When she saw us, she jumped up. It was the greatest thing to see the expression on her face, going from wondering who her mom was with to recognizing me and knowing who I was. She walked up and I said, "Nice shirt." She said, "I don't know, yours might be a little cooler." She remembered our first words. That was so awesome. She said, "Oh my God, I'm so happy to see you. I didn't think I was ever going to see you again." I pointed to my ear and I said, "What's that?" I'm kind of going deaf from too many Metallica shows. To be perfectly honest, I was pretty sure I knew what she said, but I just wanted to hear her say it again. It was so real. So she said it again and she added, "I still have my pick. What have you been up to? Have you been working on your book? I'm still waiting to read it." I told her I worked on the book for a little bit, but I put it back on hold so I could start messing with my YouTube channel. That opened her eyes. I told her about the original idea, and then I told her how I got the black ticket and I came up with the second series idea and all that good stuff. She told me she couldn't wait to check it out, and she also said, I think I know a few people that are going to be interested in this channel. I said, "Right on. I've got the best East Coast representation I could possibly have." I asked her about school. I told her I looked for her in Charlotte. She explained to me that her mom had given her a decision. When they found out that there were 2 North Carolina shows, she said we can go to both, or we can go to one with an experience package. She had the Unforgiven experience. They had planned on getting out there earlier than they did, but the 3 o'clock deal with the line, that kind of messed everything up. I told her that based on where she was in line, she had a really good shot of getting on the rail, and wished her luck there. We took some pictures. I told her I would love to interview her for my channel, but it looked like my battery was about to go. We hung out for just a little while longer. They were about to open the doors, and when they do that, the lines kind of compress and shift, and I didn't want to be in the way. I told her I would try to catch her inside. Told her how awesome it was to see her again. I felt the Gracie energy again. That was really the highlight of that day, that leg. It was one of the high points of the entire tour for me. I really got the feeling that she was equally thrilled to see me as well, and that felt really good. Right before I left, I looked at her mom and I said, hey, I got to throw out my anti-creep disclaimer again like I did in Atlanta. If you don't want to do this, I completely understand. But if you'd like to write your address in my book, I have my little notebook from where the black ticket holders sign when they get their patch. If you'd like to give me your address, I'll send Gracie some pics from random cities along the tour after it's all over. I glanced over and she had that really excited look on her face. She was a little more calm than she was the first time, but I could tell she was excited. And her mom said, Mike, I really appreciate the fact that you've done that. I appreciated it then, I appreciate it now. But I just want to let you know that in this crowd, I've never felt the least bit threatened for myself or for my daughter. These are just good people. That really gave me goosebumps hearing that. I know it to be true, but every time I hear a comment like that coming from another person, it just really, it illustrates the greatness of what I see in MetFam. So she took my notebook, she wrote down her name and her address, and I said, Mary, I never did ask you your name. I got Gracie's name the last time we met, and I was going to ask you before I left. Now I know it. I looked at Gracie and I said, now you got to be patient on these pics, but I will not forget you. I got to finish this tour first, and then we'll take care of that after it's all over. But as far as this moment, good luck with the rail. Have a great show, and I cannot tell you how awesome it's been to see you. I broke out the old fist bump. She gave me a hug, and I walked away happier than I can tell you. Pretty soon the line started moving, and by the time I got in and down on the floor, I was doing my walk around with the camera. I saw Gracie on the rail and I was so happy she made it. I tried to get a couple pictures of her. I didn't have any success. There were just too many tall people between us. But again, it was so great to see her there. Pretty soon the general admission crowd started coming in. The place really started filling up. Wasn't too much longer and Jim and Joe got the party started. They had another great night that night. Shortly after that, we heard those angels singing. Metallica was on stage giving a crowd of over 20,000 people everything they had to give. A couple songs into the set, my second battery died. It was the first time on the tour that this had happened. I screwed around and I didn't properly charge them both the night before. So I had 2 batteries with half energy and it just wasn't going to cut it. I didn't know what I was going to do for the episode, but I figured I'd deal with that later. And I just put the phone away and I enjoyed the show. We had a great set list as always. We did not hear Fade to Black. I was really hoping for that, but we did hear 3 songs off of Ride the Lightning. I originally thought about using Master of Puppets for the song in the end of the video because, as Gracie says, it's Master of Puppets. But due to the feeling that I had that entire show from not only getting to see Gracie, but getting to see Gracie and Mary together, there's really only one song that makes sense. Sorry, Gracie, no Master of Puppets this episode. Mary, this song is for you. Song of the night, Raleigh, North Carolina. Nothing Else Matters. After Nothing Else Matters in Sandman, of course, it was pick time. And I got my 2 picks, 2 Raleigh picks. This was the 26th show on the tour, and at that point, I still had my good run going, 2 from every show. And quite a few of those came with the help of other people, but that night I got those myself. After the show, I was all over the place hoping to see Gracie and her mom one final time. I wanted to see what she thought of the show, make sure she got her picks, but unfortunately I didn't see them. By the time I made it out to the group picture, the picture had already been taken. So I didn't make it into that one, but no big deal. I had to find Michelle and Brett, and that's where they were, so we headed to the car. Something kind of cool happened that night. This is the only time I've ever seen anything like this. Michelle was telling me she didn't get a Raleigh pick. She had a couple face picks. She was all bummed out. I said, I'll suck it up. We'll get you one. Don't worry about that. You'll find one. And right when I said that, I thought she fell. I saw her shoot down to the ground, and when she came up, she had a pick. She looked at it. It was a Raleigh pick. The pick she was all bummed out about not getting ended up right there in the parking lot. Some drunk guy probably pulled it out of his pocket when he was getting his keys or something. Who knows how it got there? As soon as she looked at it and saw that it was indeed a Raleigh pick, I said, see, You need to listen to me more often. I told you you were going to find one, and you found one. Another thing that I've never seen happen that night when we were leaving the parking lot, we were in line at the stop sign waiting to get out. We were just sitting there. All of a sudden, somebody opened the back door, and a chick that had way too much to drink hopped in. Brett was in the back seat. He looked at her, and he said, well, what's going on here? She told Brett to mind his own business, and she told me to step on it. She wanted to get to her hotel. She didn't have time to sit around all night. Michelle looked right at her and said, I'm just curious. Where do you think you are? She started yelling something about an Uber. And she actually thought I was her Uber ride. When I assured her that I was not an Uber driver, she gets out of the car, she's cussing at all of us. She slammed the door, and I pulled forward a little bit. I didn't want her kicking the car, and we could still hear her back there yelling. It was strange, but it was pretty damn funny. I looked back at Brett, and I said, damn, dude, you sure know how to run off the ladies. We all had a pretty good laugh, but that could have been a mistake if she'd have gotten in the wrong car. So we finally got out of that parking lot traffic jam. We got Brett back to his car. We headed to the hotel. We woke up the next morning, and we headed for Cincinnati. When I got up the next morning, I was really happy to see that Gracie had subscribed to my YouTube channel. She must have gone home right after the show and done that. When I saw that, I couldn't help but smile big. I thought how awesome it had been to see her again. I was feeling supercharged with excitement. The extra boost of energy is exactly what I needed. We had 2 more shows, and I can go home and rest up for a couple weeks, and then we had the final leg. At some point between the 4th and 5th leg, I got an awesome message from Gracie's mom. She found my Facebook page from the business card that I had given them. It was a picture of Gracie standing on the stairs at their house. She had her arm in the air, and she was wearing James Hetfield's wristband. It was a complete armband for her, just about. But at the show that night, James took it off and he handed it down to a security guard, and he pointed right at her. That was a priceless souvenir. From what her mom explained to me, turned out to be the greatest night of her life. She got her pics. She got Hetfield's wristband. She rode the rail. Gracie kicked ass in Raleigh that night, and it was awesome to hear. I shot her a message back, and I told her how awesome I thought that was. I told her to sit tight. I'm the epitome of chaos. It might take me a little while, but I was going to get those pics out to her. And I was going to throw in some other stuff too, so it might take me a little while to figure out what I wanted to send her. I wanted to make sure she got the pics that I promised. She told me to take my time, and well, that's kind of what I did. I put it on the back burner. That's right at the point where Alexander got super busy and he couldn't edit my videos, and I went through the process of trying to find someone to edit my videos before I learned how to do it myself. In other words, I got real busy and I just never sent the pics. Weeks passed, and then that became months. Next thing you know, S&M was happening. It was September, and throughout this whole time, I never forgot about it. It ran through my mind all the time. I finally got myself talked into just sending her a Christmas package, and it kind of justified my own shortcomings in my own mind. It was the wrong thing to do, but I knew at that age she was as busy as I was, and before we knew it, Christmas would be here. I'd send her a package. Everything would be good. So time was flying. September came. S&M 2 happened, and by the time I got back, I was so blown away by what went down at the S&M 2 weekend that I decided that I was going to start editing my own videos. I had to learn how to do it from step 1, so there went all my time, but Gracie kept popping into my head, and I knew I had to get that done. We were nearing Christmas. I really wish I would have sent that package. I don't have too many Metallica regrets, but that is one of them. I'm not suggesting that it would have changed a thing, but it would have given her a dose of happiness. A couple weeks before Christmas, I got a message from Mary. She said that I had mentioned sending Gracie a package. She told me I no longer needed to do that because Gracie is no longer with us. She proceeded to tell me in the message that her daughter, Gracie, at 17 years old, took her own life. I didn't know what to say then. I don't know what to say now. But I do know that's not the right way. There's no need for such a permanent solution to temporary problems. Regardless of what is going on, if you're watching this and you've got issues that seem insurmountable and you don't know what to do, talk to someone. That's not the way to handle your problems. There are plenty of organizations out there set up to help. If you need help, get that help, please. There's absolutely nothing wrong with asking for help, and no matter how bad things seem, life is worth living. And I'm going to leave that one right there. That's some of the most unexpected news I ever remember getting. There's no way I could have seen that coming, and I didn't know what to do. I thought about it every day. I thought about it long and hard. I couldn't imagine what Mary and her husband Mike were going through. Days became weeks, and weeks became months, and as time passed, I just still couldn't wrap my head around it. Once I had gotten the hang of putting my own videos together, I started putting the episodes up, and I was sitting there one day, and it hit me. There's going to be a Raleigh episode. And I started thinking about when I got to that point, maybe I would be able to make a memorial episode for Gracie. I really didn't know how I would go about doing it, how I would approach it, but I did know that I wanted to remember her as I knew her. I know that subject matter such as teen suicide is incredibly touchy. I don't have the answers. I wish I did. But I do believe awareness of what a large-scale problem this is in our society is the beginning of prevention. And awareness of the problem will only be found in remembering the victims. The only way to remember these victims is to say their names. This will also help keep their spirit alive in the lives of those who knew them the best and need it the most. I know quite a few people that have met this same end. Some of them were some of my best friends. None as young as Gracie. But one thing I do know from experience, when something like this happens, people are more often than not inclined to avoid even saying the person's name, especially to those who knew them the best, those closest to them. And for those people, that avoidance makes it that much more of a loss. I understand how easily that can happen. I've done it myself. You're afraid of hurting the person's feelings. Truth be told, you're not going to hurt that person any more than they've already been hurt. But when we avoid saying the person's name, and you get this coming from all angles, there's a stigma attached. Over time, it only hurts the person not to hear the loved one's name. It's usually not just one or two people that avoid saying the person's name. It's a good portion of the people that you know. And as time passes, if this continues as it normally does, it almost begins to feel like the person didn't even exist at all. And that can become unbearable for some people. This is the kind of stuff that was going through my mind when I knew I had to contact Gracie's mom and ask her if it would be okay if I'd talk about Gracie in the Raleigh episode. I just didn't want to be that person, and I knew if I said something that she didn't want to hear, she'd let me know. So I typed her a message and I sent it. It only took a few minutes for her to respond, and when I saw it so quickly, I thought to myself, uh-oh. I wasn't sure what I was going to open, but I clicked the message open. She said, "Thank you so much for making that offer. I want to hear my daughter's name. I need to hear it." She didn't come right out and say it, but I really got the feeling that she was going through what I just described. I told her it would be a little while. At the rate I put these videos up, we were 10 episodes away, but I said we'd be in touch about it. And she told me when it comes time to put the video together, to speak freely. Don't hold anything back. Say whatever you want to say. You're not going to hurt me any more than I've been hurt. I was kind of relieved to hear her saying that. So anyway, that was hard to do, but we got through it. I was really happy that she was on board with the idea, and she told me to let her know if I needed anything. Well, in fact, I did need something. Remember what happened as soon as the show started? My battery died. It was actually pretty strange because this is the first and only time that happened on the whole tour, but this is the time that I had it covered in the most appropriate way. When I remembered what happened that night and I realized there was a shortage of footage, I had this idea that because this was Gracie's biggest night as a Metallica fan, I thought it would be kind of cool to use her pictures and videos in the music video segment, and that would show her perspective of her final Metallica show. It really doesn't seem like it could get any more appropriate than that, and in doing it this way, Gracie saved the day, and she also gets credit as a member of my production team. So towards the end of the video where the perspective changes to that of someone on the rail with some good close-ups of the band, that's where Gracie took over. I hoped that the guys wouldn't mind, and I couldn't imagine that they would. So I shot Mary a message and I asked her about it, and she was happy to send me some pictures and a couple short video clips that she and Gracie had taken that night at the show. And here we are with the episode. So Mary and Mike, what I want to say to you is I can't imagine what you're going through. I'm not going to pretend to, because I can't ever know what that feels like. But I'm certain it's the hardest thing you've ever had to deal with, and I feel terrible for the situation you're in. I know I said this at the beginning of the video. I'm going to say it again. I've literally met thousands and thousands of very cool Metallica fans over the years. But your daughter, Gracie, is my all-time favorite, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. The time I spent with her, as limited as it was, ranks right up there with my greatest Metallica memories, and I will never forget her. I have something that I'm going to send you. I actually have a couple things, but this is a pin. It's a fan-made pin. A friend of mine, Jason, in Cleveland, he gave me a couple of these from different shows. At the pre-party at the Cleveland show, 2 shows after the Raleigh show, and I noticed that there were 2 Atlanta pins in there. I gave one of them to one of the guys from Sweden, and I kept the other one with every intention of sending it to Gracie. After I got your message and I learned what had happened, I kind of wish that I kept both pins. So I contacted my friend Jason and I asked him if he had another Atlanta pin. He said yeah, and I kind of told him what happened, and he got one to me in a few days. So I put the one he sent me on my collar here. The theme of this jacket, over time I want to cover it all with fan-made patches. I got about 5 of them on now. And this is Gracie's pin, and that's where she's going to stay. I'm going to send you this one, and I would appreciate it if, Mary, you said you were going to make a shadow box. I don't know if you've done that yet, or I figured you probably have by now. If you'll put this pin, it's got the date from the Atlanta show. It says Atlanta on it, then the hardwired head. If you'll put this pin on Gracie's wristband from James, I would appreciate that greatly. And then we'll have a good little connection. I'll have one here and she'll have one there. I said I'm going to send you a few things. Well, I also have a nice little stash of guitar picks. I started with the ones that I had, but when I first started putting this together, I was, talking it through with a couple friends, and each one of the friends said, hey, if I give you a guitar pick, will you add it in there? I said, absolutely. And, I told one friend, and that was the result with one friend. And then I kind of was talking it over with somebody else, and the same thing happened. And that happened 3 or 4 times. And in each case, the person really wanted to be a part of it. So I happily accepted the picks, and I went to our black ticket group. And everybody kind of heard about Gracie already, because when I found out what happened, I posted up a little short story about what happened, basically, and why I was looking for pictures and videos. Unfortunately, we didn't find you any. So many people in the black ticket group had already heard her story. So I basically explained how the offers from my other friends had come about, and if anybody would like to send a pic for Gracie, here's my address. They started arriving. So we've got a good little stash of pics, a couple of the 30th anniversary coins, matchbooks. You'll see when it gets there. Stickers, all kinds of cool little things, all small stuff that you can put in your shadow box. Quite a few people participated in this. I'm not going to start calling off names. I just want to say to those people, you know who you are, and I know who you are, and I really appreciate your support in this. So Mary and Mike, that package will arrive shortly. When you get it, consider it a gift from MetFam, and know that a lot of good people are sending you their warmest wishes. Mary, thank you so much for allowing those interactions to occur the way they did. And thank you for being a part of them. Mary and Mike, one final time, I want to say I'm so sorry that you've had to deal with what you've had to deal with. I'm going to do everything I can to keep Gracie's spirit alive. She's coming with me. We're going to go to a few shows together. I'll be thinking about you guys. Take care of yourselves and each other. Miss Gracie, what can I say other than thank you? Thank you for coming into my life the way that you did. You did that like an angel. You arrived just when I needed you to. You can rest assured that I'll be smiling big every time I hear those angels singing, because I know that you're up there jamming with them. It was the greatest pleasure to know you, my friend. Rock on. Everyone else, again, I'd like to remind you that life's too short not to talk to the people next to you in line. So next time you have the opportunity, strike up that conversation. And again, if you ever find yourself in a life situation where you can help keep someone's spirit alive, please say their name. There are those out there that need to hear it. And finally, as always, I'd like to say thank you for watching. Next stop, Cincinnati, Ohio. We'll see you there. Until then, rock on. So, who are you and where are you from?
Chris Jurgis, and I currently live in Concord, North Carolina.
Alrighty. So this is a hometown show.
Very close. Charlotte was a bit more of a hometown show. But.
That's what I was going to ask next.
Wow!
Okay, that's awesome. Who are you and where are you from?
I'm Tanya Harris. I'm from Old Fort, North Carolina.
I'm Amber. I'm from Marion.
I'll start from Holly Springs, North Carolina. I'm Evan Brewer.
I'm Brandon Brewer from Bluffton, South Carolina.
Colin from North Carolina originally, living in Florida now.
You guys related to the Brewers? Jim?
No, you spell it with a W.
Spell it a little bit slightly different.
Okay, I thought you were going to say. I had to ask. How long have you been a Metallica fan?
Since S&M came out in '99.
Do you have one particular person that turned you on to the band in the first place, or how did you come about being a Metallica fan?
Yeah, so kind of through my stepdad. He told my mom he kind of wanted a S&M album for Christmas, and me and my mom bought him that and gave it to him for Christmas. And the first time I heard that album, it basically changed my life.
And you took it back?
Oh, I stole that album so many times to go listen to it in my room.
That's pretty
It was
cool, though.
crazy.
I always say good parents raise good kids, so you credit your stepdad.
Yep.
Pretty cool.
Worked up.
Have you seen him before live?
Yep, this will be show number 12 for me.
Alrighty, 12, that's a lot of shows. Why do you keep doing it? Is the show that good?
Yeah, I think the show's that good, the energy's that good, and especially now knowing so many people that are traveling to all these shows, it's as much about the people and catching up and interacting and hanging out with friends as it is about the guys and as it is about the music.
Oh my God.
I have been
20 years?
since the 7th grade, so about 20 years as well. Yep.
Alrighty, have you seen them live before?
Oh yes, multiple times.
Okay, how long have you been a Metallica fan?
Shit, as long as I can remember.
Shit, I was like 13, and my next door neighbor blasted it out of his fucking
Yeah, that's right.
house at Halloween, and just
Mr.
like
Michelle, he was a
Yeah.
chemistry teacher.
fucking hooked ever since.
Alright.
I was a fan first when, Brandon, you got your truck and you had the S&M album. That
Shit.
thing
Wow.
was so bad.
That's all we listened to on the way to school.
Yeah. It reminds me of the 9th grade.
Oh yeah, they need to do another one, by the way.
What about you,
Hey, they
Kyle?
might.
Shit, I remember the first song you ever played me was King Nothing off Load.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Right on.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen them live before?
Now this will be the first time for all of us.
First time.
Prepare yourself. I believe you're about to get your worlds
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Favorite song?
Still For Whom the Bell Tolls.
Favorite album?
S&M, if you're going to include everything. If I got to go just studio, I would probably say Ride the Lightning, just because of the progression and how far they came from Kill 'Em All to Ride the Lightning.
How about favorite or most admired band member?
That's tough to say. I like them all. They each have their unique talents and their unique place in the band and their unique personalities. So it's hard to narrow it down just to one, but probably Lars if I had to really pick one.
Can you narrow it down to one favorite song?
Oh, damn right, nothing else matters. It was in our wedding. We're
Your
not
wedding?
married. No, we're not married. my husband. It was in our wedding, and but honey, listen, I love James Hetfield.
That's what we heard.
No, I love him.
She has a pass. If
I
that was
see
to ever
it.
be an opportunity.
You can't fake that.
I love him.
Favorite album?
The Black Album.
I like the Black Album. I like Ride the Lightning.
Well, here's the final favorite question, but do you have a favorite band member?
You damn right. Fucking James is the man.
Lars.
Lars. Do you love Lars as much as she loves James?
No.
I don't think I love anything as much as she loves
I
James.
love James, but I don't love Lars as much as she loves James.
Can you narrow it down to a favorite song? One favorite song. Is that possible?
All of them.
Not possible. Yeah.
Man, I
not
want to
possible.
I want to hear Inner Sandman though. That would blow me away. Or Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah,
That's cool.
shit, yeah.
You might hear Sandman. I would venture to say
Yeah.
you.
Hell yeah.
But okay, how about favorite album?
Favorite album?
Man, I'd
We
have
were
to
just
say
listening
Load.
to. I got Ride the Lightning in LA on vinyl. I got a big vinyl collection too. But not
Okay.
a lot of Metallica. I just have Ride the Lightning. That one's a good one.
Black.
Black Album?
Yeah.
Okay, and you said Load?
Oh, definitely.
Wow.
Load and Reload. But if you're gonna make me pick one, Load.
Okay. Hey, that's a good answer. How about favorite band member, past or present? Do you have one? Or?
Nice.
Don't have a favorite. Because
Oh,
they
yeah,
all
they-
make
they
the
all
shit.
make it for
Like,
sure.
there's
Exactly.
They all
We
make
were,
it what it is.
We were watching the documentary, what was it?
Some kind of monster.
Some kind of monster before just getting ready. And the tension in the band, it was kind of depressing, but we were still psyched.
Yeah.
Hey, trust me, that's all over.
Yeah,
right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
You'll see. What do you think about Jim Brewer? I know you've seen him.
Yep.
What did you think when you first heard the news? And now what do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. I was at the Madison show. That was a bit of a disaster for a lot of people, but I think he's a true professional and adapted and took the criticisms and take the feedback and created something very unique, and I think it's very interesting. And when the people look back at this tour, it's going to be a hallmark of this tour that they had, a comedian open.
What do you guys think about Jim Brewer as the opening act? Do you know about that? Some people don't even
Heard
know
he was
about
a
it.
comedian, right?
Yeah.
I don't know much about it.
Goat Boy from Saturday Night Live.
We're
Does
going
that
to the
ring any
Goat
bells?
Bar.
What is it?
We're going to the Goat Bar.
Oh, he might show up. What do you think about Brewer opening up the show? Comedy for metal.
Is he doing it inside or is it
Yeah.
going to be an outside?
No,
Okay, so
he's the opening act.
Really?
There's not another band.
We grew up with Jim Brewer's hardcore stand-up, where he talked about having swamp ass and everything.
I can't wait to compare the fucking Hetfield
yeah.
impression to Hetfield.
Jim Brewer's perfect because, yeah, that hardcore, he played with a band. He does a perfect Angus Young impression. Like, he kills me. It's great. He is quintessential metal if there's a comedian there.
Well said. But you're happy about
Yeah, what he said.
Okay.
I don't have anything
All in
better.
agreement.
It's gonna be not a shitty time.
Have you
Like,
seen
I
a
know that.
stand-up show? Have you
Yeah,
seen stand-up?
yeah.
We come from all walks of life as Metallica fans. Would you mind telling us what you do for a living?
Yeah, I'm a race engineer for a NASCAR Cup team, so I'm at all the NASCAR races. So my year's about to get very busy.
Want to give a shout out to your team, or is that something you can't do?
No, it's lead engineer in the 36 Ford Mustang for Front Row Motorsports with rookie driver Matt Tiff driving.
I'm a nurse.
Okay.
Nurse practitioner.
Alrighty. We come from all walks of life as Metallica fans. What do you do for a living?
I'm a biochemist.
Wow, I haven't met one of those yet. I don't think. Maybe in Charlotte.
Nice.
Maybe a coworker.
Aircraft mechanic.
Marine.
I've done everything, but I cut grass right now.
Hey, I cut a lot of grass in my day.
Hey, you damn right.
Right on. Final question, I'll leave you alone. If the band members themselves should happen to see this at any point in the future, do you have a message for them?
Thank you for what you guys do, and I know you hear it a lot, but what we have is more of an experience and more of a family than anything. I think we see that with this third generation of fans that are coming up to shows, and the legacy is going to continue as long as it keeps going.
3 other bands other than Metallica that you're passionate about.
Aerosmith. Evanescence. It's hard to narrow down for many.
I like Guns N' Roses, Megadeth. I love Metallica though. Like there's nobody. I love them.
Alrighty, we believe you.
I love him. I love James.
Alrighty.
I've got to see him. I've got to see him.
So do you have a plan, like a backstage access?
No, can you help me?
I wish I could.
You can.
I'm more.
You've got this little thing right here, and you can help me.
I'm gonna have to wrestle you to get it back.
Honey, you're full of shit. I know you.
If the band members themselves should happen to see this, do you have a message for them?
James, I love you. Like you are my man. I love you. I had nothing else matter. Played at my wedding. Like I love you, and I love the whole band.
Perfect.
Forever. The harder, the better. Now I don't really like the new music, but I love the old music. I love the new music.
Have you heard the new album? Oh, it's really good.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying I like
Okay.
the old stuff.
I thought you might know. You got a message?
Just I love the impact the music has on all of us. And like you said, from all walks of life. When we're all like in a restaurant, just it doesn't even matter like what we all do or where we're all from. Like when you see people walk in with Metallica shirts on, like we just kind of all have something in common, and that's really cool. So I think that's awesome.
Final question, I'll leave you guys alone. If the band members themselves should happen to see this in the future, do you got anything to say to them? You got a personal message?
Don't ever stop.
Keep fucking doing it.
Don't ever stop.
Don't stop. Just keep making the music. That's why we're here, and that's probably why they make it.
And thank you.
And yeah, thank you,
Eternal
sir.
thanks.
Yeah.
Once again, here's my friend Kirk. no matter how far, couldn't be much more from the heart. Forever trusting who